Hi, guys. Good morning. If you're watching this in the morning, I don't know what time you are watching this, but this will be shared with you on Friday. So, what you should have done at this point is have finished reading The Great Gatsby. Congratulations. It's a fascinating book. One thing that I can't help but be bummed about is, I really don't think that we got to explore it as in detail as I would have liked to, as we normally would have done during a regular class session. Instead, it's just been this kind of social learning experience, which has really been just hitting some of the highlights, trying to share what we're seeing with each other, looking at quotes. But there's so much to this book. It gets lost to me sometimes just because there's a lot of hype about Gatsby, that it's exciting, it's about parties, it's fun because it's the 1920s, and all that's true, but it's really a multi-dimensional, prismatic piece of writing that has so much depth to it that I'm really surprised by what it makes me think about every time I read it, and exactly the way that Fitzgerald has ideas bouncing off of each other in this very multi-layered way. It's a fascinating book. It truly is one of the greatest works of American literature, in my opinion. That's one reason why I like reading Huck Finn in the fall and then Gatsby in the spring, is those are two of the greatest works of American lit, and we get to look at them together. So what you have recently read would have been chapter 9, the final chapter of Gatsby. Now, there is a lot to talk about that happens, but I'm not going to talk about everything. I just want to hit a couple things that I want to talk about. I'm going to point you to some passages right now, and we will talk about what they mean and some ideas we can get out of them. You can, if you have your ebook text open, you can even pause this and get it open, and that way you can follow along with me. But I'm looking at page 188. And now we have Nick Carraway looking at everything that's happened between Tom and Daisy. He's seen Gatsby dead. He saw Myrtle killed, or at least found her dead too. So we have all these people that have really died, all these people who have failed in their dreams. Even Tom and Daisy are run off away from the wreckage of what they've done. And anyway, this final chapter is a lot of Nick just processing it all. And he says this on page 188 of the ebook. I see now that this has been a story of the West after all. Tom and Gatsby, Daisy and Jordan and I, we're all Westerners. Perhaps we possess some deficiency in common which made us subtly unadaptable to Eastern life. Now, they might not be as West as we think of as West. They're not like us in California, but we have Gatsby coming from the Dakotas. You have many of these other characters coming from the Chicago area. Daisy comes from the South, but from the West part of it. But none of them are from this Northeast kind of New England and New York area where they're meeting up here. And I think there's something important about that, and it's a gathering up of everything that we've talked about as far as the movement of American literature from especially the 19th century into the 20th century. I want to show you a map real quick and kind of tell you what I mean. So let me share my screen with you real quick. All right, so here's a map of the U.S. at some point while it was being settled. And we know that the classic romantic movement of the West is not this way, but this way. We move west in the classic romantic meaning of the term because Americans came from Europe, escaping the old world that was bound up in aristocracy bound up in social classes you were born into, and you was established here the freedom of every man being equal and everybody being able to become whatever they want to be. And even just think about that phrase, become whatever you want to be, and think about how that applies to Gatsby, the man that really created himself. He is a romantic figure. He should, to a certain degree, according to the rules of American literature, be heading out west, where the possibilities are endless in the frontier. But that's not what he does. You see, Gatsby started somewhere around here. Wait, he was on which lake was he off of? Lake Superior? He's like around here. And instead of discovering his future in the frontier, he goes back. This is the wrong direction. He's going east. All these characters are going east to discover the future. The future, the frontier, classically in America, goes this way. Think of Deerslayer. Think of any of these characters living out manifest destiny. So there's an interesting idea, because also, if you think about what lies even farther east, it's the old world, back to that world of class, of the inability to ever work yourself out of what you were born into. If you think about it, though, that is what Gatsby found. He tries to be rich. He makes his money, even if it's not even legitimate. And still he finds a world where he'll never be able to join their kind of class structure. He'll never be able to be like a Buchanan. He'll always be this new money kind of fake rich to them. And that's also it's also a problem because he's trying to live by their rules. Think of the success Jay Gatsby could be if he was out in the frontier moving west. So that's always an interesting thing to me, putting it in the frame of classic American literary movement. Let me share another quote with you. Nick runs into Tom after this is all over again, and they kind of get into it a bit. Nick doesn't even want to shake his hand. And Tom's like, well, what do you expect us to do? And he even tries to still say that Gatsby killed Myrtle when we know Daisy was driving the car. But Nick has this thought after he sees Tom walk away. He says, I couldn't forgive him or like him, but I saw that what he had done was, to him, entirely justified. It was all very careless and confused. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together and let other people clean up the mess they had made. So we had talked a little bit in our live chat about why Myrtle and Gatsby are the big, and even Myrtle's husband, George, are the big casualties here. And we said, what do they have in common? Well, they are the poor. Even Gatsby still has this essence of the poor, of the clam digger from North Dakota, even though he has all this money. And they're the ones that bear the brunt of the consequences of the actions of the rich. So I think you can see Fitzgerald making some sort of point here, that this wealth that's running everything is just mashing people up in its way, and Tom and Daisy are part of that. Well, I want to talk a little bit as we come to the close of stuff going on the last page of this book, and how it applies to kind of some of the stuff that Fitzgerald's getting across regarding the American dream. He's got one of the most beautiful discussions of the American dream, at least beautifully written moment where he talks about what it means. Let me read it to you. It starts on page 192, goes through 193. Most of the big shore places were closed now, and there were hardly any lights except the shadowy, moving glow of a ferry boat across the sound. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually, I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the New World. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired. Face to face, for the last time in history, with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. Here we have Nick picturing what it must have looked like, Long Island, to those first Dutch sailors coming from the east, coming and seeing a virgin territory, untouched land that could house anything they could dream of. It was all open and available to them. This is the idea of the American dream, that you can become anything here, that America is something commensurate to man's capacity for wonder. That means no matter how big you can dream it, it's commensurate. It's big enough to allow those dreams to come true. Although you have to notice the way Fitzgerald says it here too. He says that they beheld the last and greatest of all human dreams for a transitory enchanted moment. They must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, almost like this was the first time they had seen the American dream, but it was the last time it really was the American dream, because reality set in after that. Although we see this reoccurring throughout the book, the dream being dreamed and then coming into conflict and collision with reality. But Gatsby is our dreamer here. He is the Dutch sailors. He is even Myrtle. He is the one that represents what it means to dream of a future and to create it and to try to live it. In ways you could say Daisy is the new world, the frontier, at least in Gatsby's eyes. I want to finish with the last quote here. It's a famous quote. I think it's a fairly cryptic quote, kind of hard to understand, but we have this. Gatsby believed in the green light. Remember that green light that he would reach for? The orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther. And one fine morning, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. There's a lot of mystery to that quote. We get it to a certain degree. Gatsby believed in the future and the green light and the hope and the dream. But it says here that future eludes us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. We'll still reach for it. But you get this halting kind of use of dashes where we never actually get it. Even though we stretch out our arms farther, we don't actually reach anything. But we keep trying. It says boats against the current. Here's what I've always thought's a hard to understand passage, even for me. Borne back ceaselessly into the past. And what does that mean? I'm not sure. Maybe their dreams of the future are only taking us into things that were set up in the past. Maybe we're never really learning or living something new. It's a complex kind of picture of dreaming in the future, but this is a complex book about dreaming and specifically about the American dream. And that's where I want to lead you into next, is to put the book down for a second and talk to you about your two assignments that we're going to do for our finishing of The Great Gatsby. First is an essay. It's a short essay, only about 600 words. And the question is, how does Fitzgerald portray the American dream? Think about it. Is he criticizing it? Is he celebrating it? What kind of effects does he show that these characters are having as they strive for the American dream? How is he presenting it? Find two quotes and talk about that, but then also finish by talking about about whether or not you think he's right Did he accurately portray the American dream? And to support your idea, you'll need to find some sort of real life example about how the American dream functions in the way that Fitzgerald describes or how it doesn't. So that prompt is on Canvas. Read through it. That'll be due not next week, but the Tuesday after next week. I have to double check the date. I think it's like I don't want to say it because I can't remember. But anyway, it's on Canvas. And then the second thing is we will be having Socratic seminars 2 days of the week next week. So on Wednesday and Friday for our Zoom meetings, we'll be having a Socratic seminar, a class-wide discussion of the text. I'm not requiring everybody, in fact, not everybody needs to come to both days. Only the people that are assigned to come to each day need to show up. And there are Socratic seminar preparation questions on Canvas that you need to fill out. There's a whole bunch of different prompts, but you pick 5, you write the questions, good discussion questions, and you accompany each of them with a quote that could be used to answer that question. You make sure you turn that in before we start our Socratic seminars, and then we'll talk about them. And then you get points also by actually talking and participating in the Socratic seminar. I am aware, I've been made aware by my seniors, that APs are coming up. So look at when you are scheduled for your Socratic seminar and let me know ASAP if there is a conflict with when I've put you to meet with me on Zoom on Socratic seminar and when you have a scheduled AP, so that we can figure that out. So it's essential that you do that. All right, where can you find which Socratic seminar you're supposed to go to? It's on Canvas, it's in the announcement, so check it out. All right, guys, email me with any questions. Good job finishing a classic and important work of American literature, and we're heading into that future now. The school year is almost over. Good job, keep it up.